F1 has had all sorts of characters in its times, and in recent times it's been Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastien Vettel. However, one character that's been missing in F1 is Nikita Mazepin, with the Russian better known for his ability to bring out the safety car than his racing ability. Well, it looks like the Russian driver that everyone loves to hate could be back in F1 sooner rather than later, particularly after his most recent announcement. It's hard to forget the young Russian driver, with Nikita gaining a reputation for spinning his car during his one and only season on the grid and failing to finish above 14th at any of the season's 22 races. He either retired or finished 17th or lower in 21 of the 22 races. You can't help but think to yourself, why on earth would a team keep such a driver, with many believing the Russian driver was more trouble than he was worth. With the driver not having the best track record, this is where F1 is slightly different from most other sports. As in F1, we have such a thing as a pay driver, which is essentially a driver that is not the best, but provides financial security to the team by paying to be on the team for a race seat. It's quite an interesting concept in F1, but it's ultimately due to the massive costs that are involved in F1. With most teams, besides the big teams, struggling to reach the cost cap through sponsorship, a paid driver can be a great way to make up this gap. Let's be honest, in F1, a driver is important, but a faster car is probably the most important thing, with teams willing to sacrifice an average driver with a decent car. So what does this have to do with Nikita and his F1 seat? Well, everything really is. According to reports, Mazepin's billionaire father, Dmitry Mazepin, is rumored to be investing $20 million into Haas for each of the next 2 years. Dmitry Mazepin's company, Uralkali, was also the team's main sponsor, but this all went belly up when Russia invaded Ukraine. Just like most sporting bodies or teams, Haas severed ties with both Mazepin and Uralkali, and at the time released a statement that read, "Haas F1 team has elected to terminate with immediate effect the title partnership of Uralkali and the driver contract of Nikita Mazepin." As with the rest of the Formula One community, the team is shocked and saddened by the invasion of Ukraine and wishes for a swift and peaceful end to the conflict, said a statement from the team. Whether you think it fair or not that the athlete should be punished for something that is essentially not in their control, the ties between Mazepin and Vladimir Putin run slightly deeper, with both Nikita and his father being added to the list of people who face sanctions from the EU, forming part of the 64-page document and described as a member of the closest circle of Vladimir Putin. Not exactly someone you want near the sport. Nikita was obviously fuming. "I deserved more support from the team," said Mazepin. "There is no legal reason to terminate the contract. I was relieved to see that the FIA allowed us to start in neutral colors. I was hoping to drive, but everything changed and I lost the dream I'd been working for 18 years. The FIA did allow Russians to race under a neutral flag, but it was too late, as the young driver had already been sacked. The racing season had started, and if you were Haas, you most likely dodged a bullet, with Mazepin's replacement former driver Kevin Magnussen returned to the team and impressed straight away, finishing 5th and bagging 10 points in the first race of the season in Bahrain. Until recently, it had been under wraps what had happened behind closed doors at Haas around the whole situation, but in Gunter Steiner's most recent book, he opens up to what happened. We will be honest, he does it in particular Gunter fashion, revealing what went down, writing on the 24th of February 2022, "I woke up to the news that Russia has now invaded Ukraine. Oh great. I obviously feel very sorry for the people who are directly affected by this, but I can only look after my own ship, you know. I had to have a very difficult conversation with Nikita Mazepin, our driver. I know that his father, Dmitry, who is the majority shareholder for our main sponsor, Uralkali, is close to Vladimir Putin, and at the end of the day, I don't want our team to be associated with someone who starts an effing war, you know." This makes it a rather difficult situation for Gunter, as the Italian is effectively having to make a choice over someone's career, and on the other hand, he has to decide what is best for the team. The Italian doesn't really have an issue with making the hard choices, in particular with the drivers. Just ask Mick Schumacher was rather easily let go of. In the end, the Haas team principal said they had to make a very hard choice. "Jean and I made the decision to officially sever ties with Nikita and Uralkali. It obviously wasn't a difficult decision to make. It had got to the point where our sponsors were going to leave Haas if we didn't act now, and had we waited any longer, we could have ended up with no sponsors at all." The Nikita situation was causing us a lot of problems. Even if we kept him on because of the sanctions that have now been placed on Russian nationals in some countries, he wouldn't be able to take part in all the races. Then what if Mick gets called up by Ferrari one week? I could potentially end up with one reserve driver. Ultimately, Gunter probably made the right choice for Haas and himself, but where does that leave Nikita Mazepin in his career? That leaves us with one question: where is Mazepin, and what is he doing, and is he in line for a return to F1? Well, if reports are true, then the Russian driver could be in for a return to the track, and in particular F1, with Nikita Mazepin and his father Dmitry reportedly plotting a return to F1 by joining a cluster of new projects eyeing a place on the grid. According to a Russian news agency, there are reports that the Mazepins, Dmitry and Nikita, hold an interest in potentially launching their own team and are currently weighing up the idea. Yesterday, I had an interesting conversation with an unnamed source close to Mazepin. Russian journalist Maria Melnikova stated it was about the fact that Dmitry Mazepin has not given up the idea of starting his own team in Formula One and is ready to invest in a new project. They could also use another route into F1 through Hi-Tech. Dmitry, who has connections with Vladimir Putin, sold his shares in Hi-Tech, who operate in F2 and F3. However, he is speculated to have remained close with Hi-Tech founder and boss Oliver Oakes. A potential Russian team entering F1 is pretty crazy, in particular as the war in Ukraine is still ongoing. And on top of this, there is a small matter of Andretti, who has done everything to get into F1 and is still no closer to entering the sport. I mean, Andretti Cadillac have struggled to convince the likes of Mercedes, Red Bull and Haas principal Gunter Steiner that they would be a financially positive addition to Formula One, even though this is the union of an iconic American racing brand and household American automotive name. Further to this, even with F1's popularity boom in the United States and calendar expansion in that nation, if teams are struggling to see the value of Andretti Cadillac, it is hard to see them looking on any bid from the Mazepins any more favorably. Well, with all that being said, what has the driver been up to recently, and has he been keeping up with the racing? The young Russian has set up a fund to help Russian athletes affected by the war. The foundation will allocate resources to those athletes who've spent their lives preparing for Olympics or Paralympics or other top events, only to find they were forbidden from competing and collectively punished just because of the passports they held, he said. But in terms of racing, the Russian is due to finally get back onto some form of a racetrack, with Nikita racing in the Asian Le Mans Series. Mazepin will share an Oreca 07 entered by 99 Racing with factory Lexus driver Ben Barnicoat and bronze-rated Felix Portero in the Premier LMP2 class of the Asian Le Mans Series. I am delighted to be making my return to racing in the Asian Le Mans Series. Together with my teammates at 99 Racing, I'm hoping to have a great experience competing in the sport I love, said Mazepin.